We often speak of strength as though it's something to be acquired, something we must chase. Yet the true secret of becoming mentally strong is not found in struggle or resistance. It is in our ability to let go, to flow with life, and to embrace the vast mystery of existence that strength truly arises. To be mentally strong is to live fully in this moment. Not in the future where our fears reside, not in the past where our regrets lie, but here. Now, it's in this space, in this present, that we find clarity and peace. We free ourselves from the burdens we carry by recognizing that the only place we have control is in how we choose to be right now. But this strength is not about controlling everything around us. Quite the opposite. The strongest among us have learned the art of surrender. They've understood that trying to control the waves of life is like trying to grasp water with a clenched fist. The harder you try, the more elusive it becomes. Instead, when you open your hand, when you let go, you find peace, and in peace you find strength. Life moves in cycles like the seasons. There will be times of bloom and times of loss. Mental strength is found in accepting these cycles rather than resisting them. It's knowing that when winter comes, spring is not far behind. In the darkest moments, there is always the seed of light waiting to grow. Often our greatest source of weakness comes not from the outside world, but from how we perceive it. Challenges, hardship, suffering, these are inevitable parts of life. But the secret to strength is not in avoiding them, but in changing how we see them. What if every obstacle was a lesson? What if every moment of pain was an invitation to grow? In this shift of perspective, we discover resilience. There is power in the unknown, though it can be frightening. The unknown is where we grow, where we are tested, where we become stronger. Trust in it. Trust that in the moments of uncertainty, life is shaping you, even if you cannot yet see how. To be mentally strong is to be comfortable in this space of not knowing, to walk forward without needing all the answers. And yet we must be kind to ourselves. Strength does not come from being hard on yourself, from pushing yourself to the brink of exhaustion. It comes from self-compassion, from allowing yourself to rest when you need it, from understanding that vulnerability is not weakness, but the very path to growth. Mental strength grows when we allow ourselves to feel deeply, to acknowledge our pain, and then to rise again. One of the greatest secrets to strength is realizing that we are not our thoughts, not our emotions. These are fleeting, temporary. When we stop identifying so closely with them, we find a deeper, more enduring power within. The stories our minds tell us are often illusions, creations of the ego, but who you are beneath those stories is limitless, expansive, unshakable. And finally, to become mentally strong is to embrace change. Life is always in motion, always shifting. The river does not resist the rock in its path, it simply flows around it, adapting, moving forward. So too must we embrace the changes life brings. In this embrace, we find our greatest strength, for we are no longer rigid and brittle, but fluid, adaptable, alive. The secret to mental strength is not found in effort or resistance. It is found in surrender, in trust, in the quiet knowing that no matter what life brings, you have the inner capacity to face it, to grow from it, and to thrive in the ever-changing dance of existence. To be mentally strong is to fully inhabit the present moment. This is where life unfolds, where reality exists in its purest form. Yet we often find ourselves trapped in time, our minds either racing ahead to the uncertainties of the future or lingering in the shadows of the past. We become prisoners of these thoughts, weighed down by fears of what might be or regrets of what has been. But true strength lies not in these distant places, but here, in this very moment. When you live in the present, you begin to see that the anxieties and pressures you carry are largely self-created. The mind projects its own stories onto the blank canvas of time. We worry about events that may never happen or dwell on mistakes that can no longer be changed. But the present moment asks for none of that. It requires only that you show up, that you be here, attentive and alive. Being fully present means letting go of the constant chatter of the mind and simply experiencing what is. The world is rich with sensations, sounds, sights, and feelings that we miss when we are elsewhere in our thoughts. The gentle rustling of leaves in the wind, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, or even the simple act of breathing, these small, often overlooked moments are where life truly resides. In giving them your attention, you find a stillness, a peace that transcends the mental noise. This doesn't mean that the past and future are irrelevant or that we should avoid reflection or planning. But mental strength comes from the ability to return again and again to the present, where our energy is most effective. When we focus on the now, we can respond to life's challenges with clarity instead of reacting out of fear or habit. This is where the power of choice exists here in this instant. Being present also teaches us a profound lesson. Everything is transient. Just as the seasons change, so do our thoughts, emotions, and circumstances. By anchoring ourselves in the now, we learn to ride the waves of life without being tossed about by them. We experience the flow of life without becoming overly attached to its highs or devastated by its lows. In the present moment, we realize that everything we face, no matter how overwhelming it seems, is temporary. This awareness brings a deep sense of resilience, for we understand that we are not defined by any one moment, but by our capacity to remain steady through all of them. Ultimately, embracing the present moment is an act of liberation. It frees us from the chains of time and opens us to the infinite possibilities that exist right now. It allows us to approach life not with clenched fists, but with open hands, ready to receive whatever this moment has to offer. And in that openness, we discover the strength that has always been within us. The notion of control is something we often cling to, believing that if we can just manage every aspect of our lives, we will find security and peace. We try to control our surroundings, our relationships, the outcomes of our decisions, anything that makes us feel vulnerable or uncertain. But the secret that so often eludes us is that the more we try to control life, the more we find ourselves in conflict with it. True mental strength does not come from rigid control, it comes from the freedom of letting go. Imagine a river flowing through the landscape. Its path is shaped not by force, but by a natural, effortless adaptation to the rocks and bends in its course. The river does not try to command its surroundings, it flows with them, adjusting and moving forward without resistance. This is the essence of life's flow, and the more we try to impose our will on it, the more we disrupt the harmony that naturally exists. We often believe that controlling situations will lead to better outcomes. We create plans, strategies, and expectations, thinking that if we can just get things to go exactly as we envision, we will achieve happiness or success. But life, by its very nature, is unpredictable. It moves with a rhythm that is beyond our individual desires, constantly shifting and evolving. To live in constant pursuit of control is to live in constant friction with reality. We set ourselves up for disappointment when things don't go as planned, for frustration when life takes unexpected turns, and for suffering when we realize that not everything is within our grasp. Letting go of control does not mean abandoning responsibility or becoming passive in the face of challenges. It means understanding that while we can influence certain aspects of our lives, we cannot dictate every outcome. It's about recognizing the limitations of our control and finding peace within those boundaries. When we release the need to manipulate life into a specific form, we begin to trust the natural unfolding of events. This trust is a quiet confidence, and knowing that whatever happens, we have the strength to navigate it, not because we control it, but because we are in harmony with it. In releasing control, we also release the weight of expectations. So often, our suffering comes from the gap between what we expect life to be and what it actually is. We expect success to come quickly, relationships to meet every need, and life to conform to our desires. But life is far more fluid and complex than our expectations allow for. When we let go of these rigid ideas, we open ourselves to the beauty of what is, rather than being constantly disappointed by what isn't. This shift in perspective brings a deep sense of freedom and resilience. Mental strength is found not in the rigidity of trying to force life into submission, but in the flexibility to adapt to whatever comes. It's the ability to face uncertainty with a calm heart, to see obstacles as part of the journey rather than as barriers that need to be eliminated. It's the realization that by letting go, we actually open ourselves to greater possibilities. When we stop trying to control everything, we create space for life to surprise us, to take us in directions we may not have planned, but that offer growth and transformation. Letting go of control also means accepting that some things are simply beyond our influence. There is a great strength in surrendering to this truth. It allows us to stop wasting energy on battles we cannot win and to redirect that energy toward things that truly matter: our inner peace, our ability to adapt, our capacity for growth. In this surrender, we find a kind of peace that control could never offer. We learn to ride the waves of life rather than fighting against them, trusting that even in the stormiest of seas, we have the resilience to stay afloat. In the end, releasing control is not about giving up. It is about stepping into a deeper trust in life itself. It's about recognizing that we are part of a vast, interconnected flow of events, one that we cannot always predict or manage, but one that always moves toward growth and transformation. When we stop trying to direct every current, we find a deeper strength within ourselves, a strength that comes from knowing we are not separate from life's flow, but are an integral part of it. And in this connection, we discover the true power of letting go. Life, in its essence, moves through cycles. Just as the seasons transition from the warmth of summer to the cold of winter, so too do we experience phases of growth, decay, and renewal. This cyclical nature is one of life's most fundamental truths, yet so often we resist it, wishing to remain in the sunniest days without facing the inevitable storms. Mental strength is cultivated when we learn to accept these cycles rather than fight against them, understanding that each phase, no matter how difficult, has its place and purpose. We are conditioned to think that happiness and success are permanent states we must strive to maintain. But life is far too dynamic for such static expectations. The more we try to cling to one phase, whether it's a time of ease or accomplishment, the more we suffer when that phase inevitably passes. Just as day turns to night, times of joy and prosperity will ebb into moments of challenge or hardship. It is not a failure of life, but a natural progression, a rhythm that carries us forward whether we wish it or not. When we accept this flow, we begin to see that the darker, more difficult times are not something to fear, but something to embrace. They are necessary parts of the whole. Just as winter allows for rest and regeneration before the burst of spring, periods of struggle give us the opportunity to learn, to reflect, and to grow stronger. These moments teach us resilience, patience, and humility. They help us appreciate the fullness of life, for without contrast, we could not truly value the brighter, more joyful times. To resist life cycles is to live in constant tension, always trying to hold on to what is slipping through our fingers or to escape what we fear is approaching. But when we accept the inevitability of change, we learn to move with it instead of against it. Mental strength grows from this flexibility, this ability to adapt and flow with life rather than becoming stuck in any one moment. In accepting life cycles, we realize that nothing is permanent, neither joy nor sorrow. This understanding brings a deep peace, for it allows us to experience each moment fully, knowing that whatever we face, it is only temporary. This acceptance also brings a sense of gratitude for the present. When we stop clinging to the past or worrying about the future, we can appreciate what is happening right now, even if it's not exactly what we had hoped for. Every phase of life, whether we deem it good or bad, has something to offer. The times of difficulty often bring the most profound growth, the deepest insights. In the same way, the periods of joy remind us to be fully present and to savor the moments of peace and contentment. Acceptance does not mean passive resignation. It means recognizing that while we cannot control the cycles of life, we can control how we move through them. It's about meeting each phase with grace, with the understanding that this too shall pass. When we accept the natural ebb and flow of existence, we stop wasting energy trying to force life into a shape it was never meant to take. Instead, we conserve our energy for what truly matters: our inner state, our ability to remain centered through the ups and downs, and our capacity to grow from whatever life brings our way. This perspective also teaches us patience. In our culture of instant gratification, we are often frustrated when things don't unfold on our timeline. But life has its own timing, one that is often beyond our understanding. Accepting life cycles means trusting that everything happens in its own time, that periods of waiting or difficulty are not delays, but necessary parts of the process. It teaches us to be patient with ourselves as well, knowing that personal growth, healing, and transformation are not linear paths but cyclical ones with their own periods of rest, challenge, and renewal. Ultimately, accepting life cycles is about aligning ourselves with the natural flow of the universe. It's about recognizing that just as the earth moves through seasons, so do we move through the various phases of our lives. By embracing this truth, we find a deeper harmony within ourselves and with the world around us. We stop fighting the inevitable and begin to live in tune with the rhythms of life, knowing that every phase, whether joyous or painful, is part of a greater whole, a journey of continuous evolution and growth. The way we see the world shapes our experience of it. Our perspective acts as a lens coloring everything we encounter, and through that lens we either find strength or we find struggle. Mental resilience is not determined by the absence of challenges, but by the way we perceive and respond to them. It is in this shift of perspective that we unlock a profound inner resilience, the ability to navigate life's hardships with grace and composure. When difficulties arise, our first instinct is often to see them as obstacles, things that should not be happening. We question why we are facing hardship, why things aren't going as planned, and we view challenges as burdens to be avoided or overcome as quickly as possible. But this approach only tightens our grip on suffering. The more we resist what is happening, the more power we give to it. The secret to inner resilience lies in changing the way we see these challenges, not as threats, but as opportunities for growth and transformation. Imagine a mountain climber faced with a steep, rocky path. From one perspective, the climb could seem overwhelming, the obstacles insurmountable. But from another viewpoint, each rock becomes a stepping stone, each challenge an essential part of the journey upward. The climb itself, with all its difficulties, becomes the process through which the climber gains strength and skill. Life's challenges are much the same. When we view them as opportunities to learn, to grow, to refine ourselves, we stop seeing them as enemies and start embracing them as teachers. This shift in perspective also helps us move away from a victim mindset. So often when life doesn't go our way, we feel powerless, as though we are at the mercy of forces beyond our control. But resilience is found when we stop seeing ourselves as victims of circumstances and start recognizing our own agency. We may not be able to control everything that happens to us, but we can always control how we respond. This understanding gives us a sense of empowerment. Instead of feeling defeated by challenges, we rise to meet them, knowing that how we choose to view and engage with adversity makes all the difference. Perspective is also what allows us to see the bigger picture. In the midst of struggle, it's easy to feel as though the world is closing in, as though the hardship we are facing is all that there is. But when we step back and broaden our view, we begin to see that no challenge exists in isolation. Every difficulty is part of a larger unfolding process. Just as a storm eventually clears to reveal blue skies, our toughest moments are often temporary stages of growth. In this wider view, we find the strength to endure because we recognize that this moment, however hard, is not the end of the story. Another powerful aspect of perspective is the ability to reframe our relationship with discomfort. So often we avoid discomfort at all costs, equating it with suffering. But resilience comes when we learn to sit with discomfort, to see it not as something to flee from, but as something to explore. In doing so, we find that discomfort is often the space where growth begins. It's in the difficult moments when we're forced out of our comfort zones that we learn what we're truly capable of. By reframing discomfort as an opportunity rather than a threat, we become less afraid of life's inevitable challenges. Perspective also allows us to cultivate gratitude even in the midst of hardship. When we broaden our view, we begin to see that life is never entirely one thing or another. Even in our darkest moments, there are glimmers of light, small things to be grateful for. Whether it's the support of a friend, a moment of stillness, or simply the strength we find within ourselves to keep going, there is always something to appreciate. This practice of gratitude strengthens our resilience by reminding us that no matter how difficult things may seem, there is always something good to hold on to, something to help carry us through. Finally, perspective teaches us that nothing is fixed. The way we feel about a situation today may not be the way we feel about it tomorrow. Our emotions, like the tides, rise and fall. By remembering the fluidity of life, we can meet difficult moments with more patience and less panic. Inner resilience comes from this understanding that no matter how stuck or overwhelmed we may feel, change is always possible. The very act of shifting our perspective opens new doors, new ways of seeing, and new ways of being. In the end, inner resilience is not about avoiding hardship or pretending that life is always easy. It's about developing the capacity to meet life as it is with an open heart and a clear mind. When we change the way we see challenges, we discover that we are far stronger than we realize. We find that our true strength comes not from the absence of difficulty, but from the way we choose to engage with it, and from the deeper understanding that every moment, every experience has the potential to help us grow. There is an inherent uncertainty in life, a vast unknown that stretches out before us. No matter how much we plan or prepare, the future remains elusive, always just beyond our grasp. This can be deeply unsettling, as we are wired to seek certainty, to feel safe in the familiar. Yet the secret to mental strength is not found in clinging to the known, but in learning to trust the unknown. It is in embracing the uncertainty of life that we discover our deepest reserves of courage, wisdom, and resilience. The unknown often feels like a void, a place where we have no control, where anything could happen. We fear it because it forces us to confront our vulnerability. But this fear, this discomfort with uncertainty is something we've been taught. From a young age, we are conditioned to think that stability and predictability are necessary for happiness. However, life rarely operates within such neat boundaries. It is ever-changing, full of surprises, both good and bad. And when we spend all our energy trying to map out or control what lies ahead, we miss out on the magic that the unknown can bring. Trusting the unknown means accepting that we cannot always foresee or dictate the course of our lives. It requires a fundamental shift in how we relate to uncertainty. Instead of viewing the unknown as a threat, we begin to see it as a space of possibility. Within that uncertainty, anything can happen: new opportunities, unexpected joys, and growth in ways we could never have anticipated. It is in the unknown that we often find the most profound moments of transformation, the kinds of changes that reshape who we are in the deepest sense. At its core, trusting the unknown is an act of surrender. It is the recognition that life is far larger than our limited plans and expectations. When we surrender to this truth, we stop fighting the inevitable twists and turns of life. We let go of the need to predict or control the future and instead allow ourselves to be guided by the natural flow of events. This doesn't mean that we stop making plans or setting goals, but we approach them with a light touch, knowing that they are subject to change. This openness to change is where resilience is born. There is a paradox in trusting the unknown. While it may feel like stepping into uncertainty weakens us, it actually strengthens us. It forces us to tap into resources we didn't know we had: patience, adaptability, and a quiet inner confidence that no matter what happens, we will find our way. When we trust that we can navigate whatever life throws at us, we stop fearing the future. We realize that our strength comes not from having all the answers, but from being willing to move forward without them. The unknown also invites us to live in the present moment. So much of our anxiety about the future stems from trying to control it. But when we let go of the need for control, we free ourselves to experience life as it is happening right now. Trusting the unknown teaches us that the present is all we truly have, and in focusing on what is right in front of us, we find a deeper sense of peace and stability. This presence is where mental clarity and strength grow, for we are no longer distracted by hypothetical fears or imagined outcomes. We are here, fully engaged with life as it unfolds. Another powerful aspect of trusting the unknown is that it allows us to release the illusion of certainty. We often think that if we plan well enough, if we think through every possible scenario, we can avoid uncertainty altogether. But the truth is, life is uncertain by nature. Even the most carefully laid plans can be upended by forces beyond our control. Trusting the unknown means accepting this reality with grace. It means finding comfort in the idea that while we may not know what is coming, we are equipped to handle it when it arrives. There is also a deep wisdom in trusting the unknown. It is an acknowledgement that we do not have all the answers, that there is a larger intelligence at work in the universe, one that we may not always understand but can learn to trust. When we align ourselves with this greater wisdom, we begin to see that even the most unexpected events often lead us to where we need to be. Life has a way of guiding us sometimes through paths we would never have chosen ourselves, but paths that ultimately bring us to greater understanding and growth. In the end, trusting the unknown is about embracing the mystery of life. It is about letting go of the fear that uncertainty brings and instead opening ourselves to the possibilities it offers. When we trust in the unknown, we step into life with an open heart, ready to receive whatever comes our way, knowing that each experience, whether joyous or challenging, holds the potential to shape us in profound ways. This trust is not blind faith, but a deep inner knowing that we are capable, resilient, and that life, in all its unpredictability, is something we can navigate with strength and grace. In a world that often equates worth with achievement, self-compassion becomes a radical act of rebellion. We live in a society that encourages us to strive for perfection, to push through pain, and to minimize our struggles. As a result, many of us carry an inner critic that berates us for our perceived failures, mistakes, or inadequacies. This harsh self-judgment only deepens our suffering, creating a cycle of shame and despair. Yet, self-compassion invites us to embrace ourselves with the same kindness, understanding, and support that we would offer to a dear friend. It is in this gentle embrace that we find the strength to heal and grow. Self-compassion is not about self-indulgence or letting ourselves off the hook for our responsibilities. Rather, it is a powerful recognition of our shared humanity. Each of us experiences pain, disappointment, and imperfection. We are all fallible beings navigating the complexities of life. When we cultivate self-compassion, we acknowledge that suffering is a universal experience. This awareness allows us to step back from our individual struggles and understand that we are not alone. It reminds us that everyone faces difficulties and that it is okay to feel lost or overwhelmed at times. In recognizing this, we can offer ourselves the kindness we so readily extend to others, breaking the cycle of self-criticism that often ensnares us. One of the core elements of self-compassion is mindfulness. It requires us to be aware of our thoughts and feelings without judgment. When we experience pain or failure, we often react with intense self-criticism, drowning in negative self-talk. Mindfulness allows us to observe our emotions with curiosity rather than judgment. Instead of labeling ourselves as weak or unworthy, we can simply acknowledge that we are feeling hurt or disappointed. This shift in perspective is crucial because it opens up space for compassion to arise. By observing our emotions without the lens of harsh judgment, we can respond to ourselves with kindness rather than condemnation. Self-compassion also involves recognizing that we are deserving of love and care simply because we exist. Many people struggle with the belief that they must earn compassion through achievement or by being good enough. However, this mindset creates a conditional relationship with ourselves, one that is based on performance rather than inherent worth. When we practice self-compassion, we affirm that we are worthy of kindness regardless of our accomplishments or failures. This understanding liberates us from the relentless pursuit of perfection, allowing us to embrace our true selves with all our flaws and imperfections. In our journey towards self-compassion, we can also reflect on the way we speak to ourselves. Often we are our harshest critics, quick to point out our shortcomings and mistakes. Imagine if you were to speak to a friend or a loved one in the same way you speak to yourself. Would you be as critical? Would you tear them down in moments of struggle? This realization is powerful because it highlights the disparity between how we treat ourselves and how we treat others. By consciously choosing to speak to ourselves with kindness and understanding, we begin to change the narrative within our minds. We can replace harsh criticism with gentle encouragement, reminding ourselves that it's okay to be human, to falter, and to feel. Self-compassion also teaches us the importance of forgiveness. We all make mistakes, and clinging to feelings of guilt or regret only prolongs our suffering. Holding on to past failures can create a heavy burden that weighs us down, making it difficult to move forward. When we practice self-compassion, we learn to forgive ourselves for our shortcomings, understanding that making mistakes is part of being human. This forgiveness is not about excusing our actions, but about recognizing our capacity for growth and change. By letting go of the weight of guilt, we create space for healing, allowing ourselves to learn from our experiences rather than be defined by them. Additionally, self-compassion nurtures resilience. Life is filled with challenges, and it is through our struggles that we often grow the most. When we approach ourselves with compassion during difficult times, we create a supportive internal environment that fosters resilience. Instead of feeling isolated in our pain, we can draw upon our inner kindness as a source of strength. This supportive dialogue allows us to face adversity with courage and determination, knowing that we are worthy of love and care even in our darkest moments. Moreover, self-compassion encourages us to set healthy boundaries. In our desire to be kind to others, we sometimes neglect our own needs. By practicing self-compassion, we learn to recognize that our well-being is equally important. It reminds us that saying no or prioritizing our own needs is not an act of selfishness, but an essential aspect of self-care. When we honor our own boundaries, we create the space necessary for our own growth and healing. This, in turn, enables us to show up fully for others, creating healthier relationships built on mutual respect and understanding. Finally, embracing self-compassion allows us to live more authentically. When we free ourselves from the burdens of perfectionism and harsh self-judgment, we can embrace who we truly are. We learn to celebrate our uniqueness, our quirks, and our individuality rather than trying to conform to external standards or expectations. This authenticity fosters a deeper connection with ourselves and with others, allowing us to cultivate meaningful relationships based on honesty and vulnerability. In this space of acceptance, we find the courage to pursue our passions and live life on our own terms. Ultimately, self-compassion is a profound practice that has the power to transform our lives. It invites us to treat ourselves with the same love and understanding that we so readily give to others. By cultivating self-compassion, we break free from the chains of self-criticism and shame, opening ourselves to a more compassionate, resilient, and authentic existence. In this journey of self-discovery, we find that the greatest gift we can give ourselves is not perfection, but the ability to embrace our humanity with kindness and grace. Change is the essence of life, an unstoppable force that shapes every moment of our existence. Yet, as natural as it is, change is something we often resist. We cling to what is familiar, hoping to freeze time and hold on to the moments that bring us comfort, stability, or success. But life in its infinite wisdom moves in cycles, constantly shifting, evolving, and transforming. The secret to mental strength lies not in resisting change, but in learning to embrace it. When we let go of our attachment to permanence, we open ourselves to the flow of life, finding peace in its inevitable transitions. One of the reasons change feels so difficult is that it pulls us out of our comfort zones. We are creatures of habit, and we find safety in what we know. But growth rarely happens in the confines of the familiar. Change stretches us, challenges us, and forces us to adapt to new realities. In this way, it is a catalyst for transformation. The moments of discomfort that accompany change are often the very moments where we discover new strengths, perspectives, and capacities within ourselves. When we embrace change, we shift from a mindset of fear to one of curiosity, seeing each transition as an opportunity for growth. Change also brings with it the gift of renewal. Just as the seasons cycle through phases of birth, death, and rebirth, so too do our lives move through similar patterns. Relationships, careers, dreams all undergo changes that can feel like endings, but in truth, they are often the beginnings of something new. By embracing change, we learn to let go of what no longer serves us, making space for new experiences, new people, and new possibilities to enter our lives. It is through this process of release and renewal that we evolve, becoming more aligned with who we are meant to be. A key to embracing change is the recognition that nothing in life is truly permanent. This realization can be both liberating and unsettling. On one hand, it forces us to confront the fragility of life, to acknowledge that everything we hold dear is subject to change. On the other hand, it invites us to fully appreciate the present moment, knowing that it too will pass. When we stop clinging to the illusion of permanence, we become more present, more engaged with life as it is happening. We begin to see that each moment, each experience is precious precisely because it is fleeting. This awareness brings a deeper sense of gratitude and joy. Embracing change also teaches us resilience. Life is full of unexpected twists and turns, and we cannot control every outcome. But we can control how we respond to these changes. By accepting that change is an inevitable part of life, we build the mental strength to navigate it with grace. Instead of being thrown off course by unexpected events, we learn to adapt to find new ways forward. This adaptability is the cornerstone of resilience. It allows us to move through life's challenges with a sense of inner stability, knowing that no matter what changes come our way, we have the strength to meet them. Moreover, embracing change helps us break free from stagnation. When we resist change, we often find ourselves stuck, whether in a job that no longer fulfills us, a relationship that no longer supports our growth, or a mindset that limits our potential. By welcoming change, we invite movement into our lives. We give ourselves permission to explore new paths, to take risks, and to evolve beyond the limitations of our past. This openness to change fosters creativity and innovation, allowing us to live more fully and authentically. Change also reminds us of the impermanence of suffering. In moments of hardship, it can feel as though the pain will never end, as though we are trapped in a cycle of despair. But when we embrace change, we remember that all things are temporary, including our suffering. Just as joy comes and goes, so too does pain. This understanding helps us cultivate patience and hope during difficult times, knowing that no matter how dark the moment may seem, it too will pass. In this way, embracing change brings us peace even in the midst of uncertainty. Ultimately, change is not something to fear, but something to welcome. It is the natural rhythm of life, the force that propels us forward, shaping who we are and who we are becoming. By embracing change, we align ourselves with the flow of life, finding strength, resilience, and peace in the midst of transformation. It is in this acceptance that we discover our true power, the ability to move through life's endless cycles with grace, fully open to the possibilities that each new moment brings. Detachment from the ego is a profound journey that challenges the very foundation of how we perceive ourselves and the world around us. The ego, often defined as our sense of self, our identity shaped by our thoughts, beliefs, and experiences, can become a source of both motivation and suffering. While it helps us navigate our existence, it can also entrap us in a web of attachment, leading to feelings of superiority, inferiority, and an insatiable need for validation. Detaching from the ego does not mean abandoning our identity, but rather recognizing that our true essence transcends these constructs. When we are heavily identified with our ego, we often find ourselves caught in a cycle of comparison, striving for external approval and clinging to our self-image. We measure our worth based on accomplishments, possessions, and the opinions of others. This constant need for validation can lead to anxiety, insecurity, and a sense of emptiness. By learning to detach from the ego, we free ourselves from this cycle of seeking external validation, recognizing that our worth is inherent and not contingent upon external circumstances. Detachment from the ego allows us to see life through a broader lens. The ego often narrows our focus, causing us to become fixated on our individual desires and concerns. This narrow perspective can lead to a sense of isolation, as we believe that our experiences are unique to us. However, when we step back and observe our thoughts and feelings without attachment, we begin to realize the interconnectedness of all beings. We recognize that every individual shares the fundamental experience of being human, with its struggles, joys, and vulnerabilities. This understanding fosters empathy and compassion, allowing us to connect more deeply with others in the world around us. One of the key aspects of detaching from the ego is embracing humility. The ego thrives on the idea of superiority and distinction. It seeks to elevate itself above others. However, when we practice humility, we acknowledge that we are just one thread in the vast tapestry of existence. We recognize that our experiences and perspectives are limited, and that we can learn from others regardless of their status or background. This humility softens our edges, allowing us to approach life with openness and curiosity rather than judgment and defensiveness. Detachment from the ego also invites us to embrace impermanence. The ego is inherently attached to notions of permanence, whether it's a fixed identity, achievements, or possessions. However, life is in constant flux. Everything we hold dear is subject to change, and when we cling to our egoic attachments, we create unnecessary suffering for ourselves. By accepting the transient nature of life, we learn to appreciate each moment for what it is without the need to grasp or hold on. This acceptance fosters a sense of peace, as we begin to see that every experience, both joyful and painful, is a passing wave in the vast ocean of existence. Furthermore, detaching from the ego encourages us to embrace vulnerability. The ego often hides behind walls, seeking to protect itself from perceived threats. However, true strength lies in the willingness to be vulnerable, to show our authentic selves without the masks of perfection or invulnerability. When we detach from the ego, we open ourselves up to authentic connections with others, allowing them to see us as we are flawed, imperfect, and beautifully human. This vulnerability fosters deeper relationships as it invites others to share their own authentic selves in return, creating a safe space for genuine connection and understanding. In the realm of personal growth, detachment from the ego is essential for true transformation. The ego often resists change, fearing the unknown and clinging to familiar patterns. When we identify too closely with our ego, we may become stagnant, trapped in cycles of behavior that no longer serve us. By stepping back and observing our thoughts and actions without judgment, we can recognize the patterns that hold us back. This awareness empowers us to make conscious choices that align with our true values and aspirations rather than those dictated by the ego. Additionally, detachment from the ego allows us to cultivate a sense of gratitude. When we are caught in the ego's grip, we often focus on what we lack or what we want to achieve. This mindset can lead to dissatisfaction and a sense of scarcity. However, when we learn to appreciate the present moment and the abundance that exists within it, we shift our focus from lack to gratitude. We recognize the beauty in the small things, the warmth of the sun, the laughter of a friend, the simple joys of everyday life. This gratitude nourishes our spirit, reminding us that happiness is not found in external accomplishments, but in the richness of our experiences. Moreover, detaching from the ego fosters a sense of trust in the unfolding of life. The ego often clings to control, fearing the unknown and seeking to manipulate circumstances to ensure safety. However, when we release this need for control, we open ourselves to the flow of life. We learn to trust that everything happens for a reason, and that even in moments of uncertainty, we are being guided toward growth and understanding. This trust allows us to approach challenges with an open heart, knowing that they are opportunities for learning and evolution. Ultimately, detachment from the ego is a profound journey towards self-discovery. It invites us to peel away the layers of our conditioned beliefs, social expectations, and self-imposed limitations. As we detach from the ego, we uncover the essence of who we truly are beyond titles, roles, and identities. In this space of authenticity, we can connect with our inner wisdom, creativity, and purpose, allowing us to live more fully and passionately. In conclusion, detachment from the ego is not an act of self-denial, but a journey towards self-liberation. It empowers us to navigate life with grace, humility, and authenticity. By releasing our attachment to the ego, we open ourselves to the beauty of connection, the richness of experience, and the profound wisdom that comes from embracing our shared humanity. In this state of detachment, we find freedom, the freedom to be who we truly are and to live in harmony with ourselves and the world around us. In the journey toward mental strength, we are invited to embrace the profound truths that life offers us. We learn to live fully in the present, to release our need for control, and to accept the cycles of change that shape our existence. Through these practices, we develop an inner resilience, one born not from the absence of hardship, but from a deep understanding of how to navigate it with grace. We trust in the unknown, seeing it as a space of possibility rather than fear. And we offer ourselves the compassion needed to grow through our struggles. Detaching from the ego frees us from the illusions of permanence and allows us to engage with life as it truly is, dynamic, unpredictable, and ever-changing. When we embrace change, we align with the flow of life, discovering strength and adaptability and peace in the unfolding of each moment. This path is not about denying the difficulties we face, but about meeting them with a calm heart and an open mind. In this space of acceptance and awareness, we find the secret to becoming mentally strong, not through resistance, but through trust, compassion, and an unwavering openness to life's constant transformation.